enough to do before we make everything stop.
That they will have a choice of either letting the Satan put his symbol of worship, the mark of the beast, on their forehead, or their foreheads will be removed from their body.
These are demonic. I mean, these are evil. Their only purpose is to destroy the innocent, to
Come, sign your soul away.
We can't let the people know! We can't let the people know!
We are out of time. They don't even know it's coming. We are out of time. They don't even know it's coming.
Welcome to the sacrificed.
Yeah, no, I was on February 20th, 2023. I was attacked in my bed by a spiritual being and clawed and left bleeding and scarred. And do I understand what happened? No, of course I don't. I don't really understand anything, but that did happen to me. I don't care if people believe me or not. It did. And I think it was just a momentary glimpse of something that's happening at all times, which is, again, this war between forces that we can't see, not since we dropped the atomic bomb in Nagasaki, the second one in August of 1945, and decided that we were gods, and the God himself no longer existed. Since then, we have been a secular society, and that's why we're now being destroyed, in my view. I care about this country and what happened to it after 1945, and it's a very clear demarcation line, and it seems obvious to me that nuclear weapons are demonic. There's no upside to them at all, and that anyone who claims otherwise is either ignorant or doing the bidding of the forces that created nuclear technology in the first place, which are not human forces, obviously. And let me just ask you this, which I've asked a million people at dinner parties, but never in public. What was the moment we can point to that nuclear technology was invented? You know, we can point to Isaac Newton and say, what apple fell on his head? Or we can point to Albert Hoffman in his lab messing around with the, ergot bacteria. That's when LSD was made. I've never met a person who can isolate the moment where nuclear technology became known to man. And so where did it come from exactly? Oh, German scientists in the 30s. Really, when? Name the date. And I've never heard anybody do that. It's very clear to me that these are demonic. I mean, these are evil. Their only purpose is to destroy the innocent, to murder the innocent. They've only been used once, and I think there's an interesting ethical debate about their use. Was Truman right or whatever? But if you take 3 steps back, you could say, well, wait a second. If you end up killing, incinerating tens of thousands of civilians, that's just a bad thing. Let's just be honest. That's just a bad thing. And anyone who does that is going to pay consequences. It's just true. And by the way, the fact the second bomb was dropped on the Christian population of Japan, which was majority in Nagasaki. In fact, it was sighted in on a church in Nagasaki. Was that an accident? Why Nagasaki exactly? And by the way, why has every subsequent American war resulted in disproportionately the deaths of Christians? That would include Vietnam, by the way, where the Catholic population was decimated, up to and including Iraq and Syria, now in Russia. Why is it that our use of force consistently since the end of the Second World War has been against Christians? That's been the effect, to kill Christians. The bombing of the Balkans in the 90s under NATO. Why is that? And I just don't think it's an accident. Clearly, it's not an accident.
This next story is going to leave you shaking your head. A woman from New Jersey is accused of stabbing another woman in the parking lot of a Marshall's. Investigators say the two women had a disagreement in the checkout line. They claim the suspect then purchased a knife at the store and stabbed the woman. New Jersey reporter Tony Yates is live outside the Marshalls in Kearney with the details. Tony.
Yeah, Liz, the suspect has a detention hearing set for Thursday. And like you said, this wasn't even two shoppers having a tussle over an item that was for sale. As you said, it sounded like one person simply ran out of patience. And people we spoke to today say, sadly, that has become way too common. Yeah, what do you think's going on in the world?
Insanity.
It is a busy Marshall's location, but on Saturday, patience ran out for one woman who ended up being arrested. Kearney police say 25-year-old Amber Thompson of Newark was angered by another customer whom she decided was taking too long in the checkout line and then threatened to harm the shopper once they got outside. Well, police say Thompson bought a set of knives, took one out of the packaging, chased the shopper down and stabbed her several times. The victim was rushed to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The suspect was found back inside the Marshalls. Police say she was hiding in a bathroom where a bloody knife was also found. We tried to speak to many shoppers as they exited the store off camera. Some questioned whether or not there should be more security here, especially after the stabbing. Others say many people are simply on edge and acting irrationally.
I think it's pretty crazy that that happened here in, what is this, Kearney Harrison? Yeah, it's just crazy because it never happens around here.
Well, Amber Thompson is being held in the Hudson County Correctional Facility. She is facing numerous charges, including aggravated assault and possession of a weapon.
And I'm so glad we're doing this topic. We don't speak enough about the persecution of Christians in the world, the #1 persecuted religion in the world. What can you tell us about what's going on in Nigeria and why we've been so slow to respond?
Well, first of all, just to put this in context, if you put together all the Christians persecuted for their faith around the globe, Rachel, they do not compute to the high numbers in Nigeria. As Charlie just mentioned, 52,000 killed since 2009. That equals, there's a group called Intersociety, which does pretty good polling on the ground. They say that's about 35 Christians killed every day. Okay, 3 churches are destroyed every day in this area. And look, it's a combination. In northern Nigeria, you have both Muslims and Christians being killed. But in the Middle Belt and elsewhere, it's all Christians being slaughtered. And the perpetrators here are Boko Haram, whose name we know, an Islamic terrorist group. You have these Fulani herdsmen who run around on horses or on motorcycles with machine guns. They literally mow these Christians down, these farmers who are tending to their land. It is an outrage. And back in 2017, the Trump administration designated Nigeria as a country of particular concern.
So that when we read in chapter 13 that the saints will be given over to the hand of Satan, that terrifies people. It says, and I saw a beast rising out of the sea, and he goes, it. I love this. He calls it it. He doesn't give it a name. This beast is an it. Was allowed to exercise authority for 42 months, or 3.5 years, again, the time in which Israel's hidden. And it was allowed to make war on the saints and to conquer them. How did he do that? Well, later on in chapter 20, verse 4, he says, I saw the souls of those who had been beheaded for their witness to Jesus and for the word of God, who had not worshipped the beast or his image, had not received his mark on their foreheads or in their hands, and they lived and reigned with Christ for 1,000 years.
Welcome on back now, 6:45. Look, it's the 16th day of a government shutdown, and some lawmakers, they're saying it could stay closed through Thanksgiving. Federal employees, they've already seen some of the consequences of a shutdown, and food assistance programs, those could be next. So let's go live to Scripps News Group national correspondent Joe St. George, who's live in D.C. And Joe, how could these programs be impacted, and what are states doing to prepare?
Yeah, and we should note there are hundreds of thousands of people in Colorado paying attention to this as we talk about the impact on SNAP. Remember, SNAP is funded through the U.S. Department of Agriculture. The USDA is notifying states this morning that if this shutdown stretches into November, the funds may not be there to make that payment to Colorado, to local jurisdictions that administer SNAP. This morning, Jefferson County up in Metro Denver are indicating that they are putting some SNAP applications on hold as a direct result of this government shutdown. The state of Minnesota this morning, on their website, they're no longer approving any new applications in the entire state of Minnesota. Again, the threat is this shutdown goes into November, the money not being there for the November check, and therefore SNAP programs being impacted. Doesn't look, though, at least for the time being, that the Trump administration will save SNAP the way that it has paid military members, for instance, paid federal law enforcement officers, kept the program WIC going, the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children. Doesn't look like SNAP is going to receive that same treatment, at least not yet. As far as federal workers go, remember, north of 4,000 have been permanently fired during the shutdown. A San Francisco judge has ordered those firings to be paused, so there's some legal questions about those firings still. Yesterday, the Trump administration said firings could increase soon, north of 10,000 firings being on the table. Our viewers, I know, ask, right? Boy, another story about the shutdown. The story never ends. Well, we're covering it because the longer this goes on, the more impacts play out.
Boy, another story about the shutdown. The story never ends. Well, we're covering it because the longer this goes on, the more impacts play out.
For whatever reason, Islamic terrorism is just not covered. And when you look closely, 22 Islamic terrorist groups, including Boko Haram and others, have safe haven and have a safe quarter in Nigeria. Now, here's a little news. I was told this last week. There is a group of Nigerian legislators coming to Washington this week trying to petition the Trump administration and Congress from designating their country as one of particular concern. They don't want this, but they're doing nothing to protect the Christian population there and to stop these radical Islamic groups from just laying waste to people on the other side of the religious divide from them. But I've spoken to Christian leaders there for decades. They will tell you they are very much afeared that Nigeria is going to turn into what Egypt and Constantinople became, which, remember, was a majority Christian country that over time you had an Islamic destruction of the faith. And that's what's happening in Nigeria in real time. We've got to do something here, at least put sanctions on this government.
What's remarkable, I couldn't agree with you more, and what's remarkable is despite this persecution, the number of conversions and the faith of the African church is something that's so inspirational. So we appreciate you joining us on this story.
That's right. This Turning Point event became so popular really at the last minute that they had to move it from a small field house to a much larger arena, and the headliner last night did not disappoint.
What would you say to pastors who are scared to speak out, who are trying to walk the line because they don't want to offend either side?
There's a revival happening. This isn't the time to be frightened. This is the time to no longer deny his holiness and his greatness. That not only is Jesus Christ real, the devil is real. And the devil has his hands on the levers of power. And we must be mindful of that.
And the devil has his hands on the levers of power. And we must be mindful of that.
Bottom line, during the Israeli/U.S. attack on Iran, Israeli military officers attempted a soft coup inside the Pentagon, trying to bully the U.S. military into demanding Trump go to full war with Iran. We know it's true, not just from whistleblowers, but from the public statements of Netanyahu and others. This is so incredibly dangerous, ladies and gentlemen. America must control its own destiny. President Trump is who he elected, not Benjamin Netanyahu. Here's my full report.
During the 12-day war, such as it was with Iran, the U.S. and Israel versus Iran, bombing on all sides. During that short conflict, IDF officers in the Pentagon, foreign military officers in the Pentagon, and by the way, they're not the only foreign military officers in the Pentagon, to be clear. There are NATO officers, they're from other countries, British, but there are a bunch of Israeli Defense Force officers in the Pentagon that week. And during that week, ask anyone who works at the Pentagon, they enraged American Pentagon staff by just barging into meetings, giving orders, making demands, and nobody did anything about it. How can a foreign military officer barge into military headquarters, even if invited, but barge into a meeting and start demanding, we want this, we want that?
Yeah, what do you think's going on in the world? Insanity.
Yeah, what do you think's going on in the world? Insanity.
Resistant nightmare bacteria is on the rise in the U.S., jumping nearly 70% since 2019, according to the CDC.
We're learning a lot more about this, and it's pretty scary. The increase is fueled by bacteria with the NDM gene, which are extremely hard to treat. Only 2 IV antibiotics actually work. 9 News health expert Dr. Pyle Coley is joining us now to explain a little bit more about this. Dr. Pyle, good morning. Or Dr. Coley, good morning.
Good morning, guys.
Same.
Yeah.
Why is this called nightmare bacteria?
For so many reasons, it really is a nightmare for physicians. So one you already mentioned, Jordan, sometimes only a couple of antibiotics work, and those antibiotics can be toxic, but in some cases you have 1 or 0 antibiotics that actually work to treat this bacteria. So doctors aren't left with many options. It makes you really sick. So the mortality rate, people who die from it, are about 40 to 50%.
Whoa.
And then third, it spreads very easily from one bacteria to another. So the thing, that NDM resistance gene that makes it resistant to the antibiotics, is on a basically what's called a mobile DNA element. So it can easily move from one bacteria to another. And a lot of us actually are carriers of this bacteria, healthy people, in our intestines, in our nose. So we can also spread it to others in nursing homes and those with weakened immune systems.
Well, we asked you if this is anything like MRSA, and you said this is even worse than MRSA.
Much worse than MRSA. So MRSA is methicillin-resistant Staph aureus, which is one of the type of resistant bacteria that we have. Staph aureus, as we know, lives in our skin. It can live in our nose. But MRSA version of it can be a little bit more aggressive. So you need a special antibiotic to cover it. In this particular bacteria's case, it's got an NDM gene, which is the New Delhi metallo-beta-lactamase. So it makes it resistant to one of our biggest gun antibiotics, which are called carbapenems. So this is what we used to use when we really didn't have a lot of options, and this particular bacteria is resistant to it. And we used to think it's only something that happens in other countries, or people who come back from other countries are the ones at risk for it. But after COVID, we're seeing a huge surge here in the United States. In fact, an increase of 460% in this bacteria. Now, the good thing is, out of every 100,000 infections, only 1.35 are due to this bacteria. But again, that's a 460% increase from just a few years ago.
Quick follow-up. Explain that increase that you're talking about right there.
So during COVID, we used a lot of antibiotics. A lot of people got into the hospital. There was a lot of essentially person-to-person contact in a way that wasn't there before, especially with healthcare workers and people who wouldn't normally be part of healthcare. And then the overuse of antibiotics, with some people actually underusing antibiotics. You know, the doctor gives you a 10-day course, and after 5 days you feel better, so you stop taking the rest of it. Or you have a viral infection and they give you antibiotics. All of this contributes to breeding resistance. So it teaches our bacteria how to fight our antibiotics, because you give them just enough to teach them, but not enough that you actually overcome it. So that's what we think has led to this particular increase.
I feel like there's been so many people recently, they're like, yeah, they couldn't figure out what was wrong, so they gave me antibiotics. You know, I've got antibiotics, and I'm just like, this is part of the problem, though. Like, we kind of have to only take antibiotics if we really, really need them.
We really should think about that, and that happens all the time. You go to the doctor, you have a cough, okay, here's some steroids and some antibiotics.
Right.
Of course you feel better, but it could all have just been a viral infection and you'll feel better anyway, so I'm so glad.
Okay. Now to that breaking news, a heartbreaking story out of Blood County. A teenager only given days to live after she was shot during a party this weekend in Jefferson County.
It is just awful news. 18-year-old Kimber Mills' family telling us right now they are, quote, waiting on her body to do what it needs to do. Her sister says Mills will be an organ donor. Mills is one of 4 people shot at that party.
A man is in jail tonight, charged in that shooting. Your reporter, Bria Chapman, joins us now live. Bria, you're hearing about how this community is coming together for Mills, and you talked to another boy shot that night.
Yes, that is right, Morgan. So I spoke to 21-year-old Silas McKay, who tells me he was shot 10 times. And he says all he was trying to do was to protect the other young ladies at the party from the suspect, 27-year-old Stephen Whitehead. Now, McKay says he believes he was the intended target, but sadly, 18-year-old Kimber Mills got caught in the crossfire.
I look at her like a little sister to me. And I tried everything I could. I wish there was more that I could have done.
Silas McKay says he's known Kimber Mills for a few years now. The 18-year-old is a senior at Cleveland High School and a cheerleader. McKay says they all usually hang out every weekend, but this was the first time they've ever had any issues.
My ex-girlfriend had came up to me at the party and was saying that this guy was and do stuff to this girl named Kimber, and me and my buddy found him. Well, my buddy started fighting him, but then I had grabbed him and threw him over my shoulders and had him on the ground. And when one of my buddies pulled me off of him, and then that's when he had pulled his gun out and started shooting.
And McKay tells me he was shot 10 times.
3 times in the leg, 1 in the hip, 1 in my rib cage, 2 in my stomach, my finger, 1 in my pelvis, and my inner left thigh.
Although he is still in the hospital, he's expected to make a full recovery. He's already been up, walking around, and while he's happy to be alive, he wishes things could be different for Kimber.
Where he's only just trying to shoot me. Kimber only got shot because she was at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Also tonight, some breaking news just into us here in just the last hour or so on the death of an ex-NFL Pro Bowl running back. Police now say Doug Martin was involved in a break-in at a home in Oakland, and that when officers tried to detain him, he struggled and then became unresponsive when he was taken into custody. They say he died after being moved to a local hospital. Martin was 36 years old. Steve Patterson is following this one. There are some questions around the circumstances related to Martin's death. Steve, what are we learning?
Many questions, but certainly the breaking news here is the identity of the person who died in police custody, something we were trying to confirm since the story broke, really. Police now confirming that this is, in fact, former NFL star Doug Martin. I want to give you the TikTok of what police have been telling us, which is, as you mentioned, there is a call for a break-in. Simultaneously, there is the call for the person who broke in of having a medical emergency. Police arrive on scene. That person still having that medical emergency. They describe what they say is a brief struggle with the suspect following police custody and a brief detention. The person starts struggling, becomes unresponsive, taken to a local hospital where he unfortunately dies. You see the statement on screen. It really confirms the details that we have. We've tried to find out more from maybe is the family talking about this. Nothing from them yet except the wish for them to honor some privacy. Also, though, hearing from the NFL, certainly offering their condolences, as well as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers lauding this person's achievement. Just 36 years old, in his rookie season, ran for 1,500 yards, 11 touchdowns. Certainly somebody that will be missed by the NFL community as police continue their investigation. By the way, we should say officers, of course, placed on administrative leave per the investigation. That's standard procedure, as we know. As police continue to find out what happened here. It's something more.
They will have a choice of either letting Satan put his symbol of worship, the mark of the beast, on their forehead, or their foreheads will be removed from their body. I often hear people say that there will be a great revival before the second coming of Christ. And simply based upon what we're reading here, and I agree. I mean, it appears that most will come to Christ.
As a Christian, I think the world's Christians will know that this country, that this region of the world means a great deal to me. And at some point today, I hope to go, or at some point in the next couple of days, I should say, I hope to go to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which Christians believe is the site that Jesus Christ was crucified in. And I know that Christians have many titles for Jesus Christ, and one of them is the Prince of Peace. And I'd ask all people of faith, in particular my fellow Christians, to pray that the Prince of Peace can continue to work a miracle in this region of the world.
This Bentley that I park in the church is not just for me, it's for the church, it's for us.
Can you drive it?
No, God wouldn't want that in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Now let me tell you.
I, Roberta McCoy, given faith and stand in unity with the vision of Perfected Church of sowing this seed of $1,000 plus $235 and receiving the blessings to come to all that participated.
Now that's only $1,200.
Yes.
Y'all not listening to what I'm saying.
What?
If you have 1,000 plus 1,000.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna work on the other 800.
Well, that ain't what I asked you to do.
Who is it? Open up the door before we make it inside. Open up the door.
I can't even begin to imagine, and again, this is video that was provided by the woman who lives in that home. I do want to bring in Chief Tarek McGuire, the chief of police there in Alexandria, to talk more about all of this. And Chief, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us.
Thank you, Josh. Thanks for having me this morning.
Of course. And that video is absolutely terrifying. So first, I do want to get your take. As you hear this story and then you watch the video for the first time, what is going through your mind as the chief of police?
Well, thanks for having me on this morning. You know, the first thing that comes to mind is we've worked extremely hard here in Alexandria to work on making sure that our communities are safe. And that includes our crime numbers right now, which are down approximately 29%. And so when you have crimes that bring a victim to scarcity, such as in this video, it's quite alarming. When I look at this video as just a human, a community member here, the first thing that I think is this a prank? Because you see the Halloween mask, you see someone walking up to a door trying to scare a family. And then from a human side, I really think about the family being alarmed. And ultimately, how can we solve this crime? How can we solve this case to bring closure to not only the family, but the greater community?
And what can you tell me here about what actually happened? Because I know there's a lot circulating, as I mentioned, on social media. The homeowner has spoken to some of the media members there. Can you explain to me exactly what is going on here?
Yeah, so this incident happened, I think on Tuesday night, between 9:50 to 10 o'clock at night. And as you see in the video, you have several people that walk up in Halloween masks, and these are Halloween masks and costumes that are normally associated with horror movies that have been in movie theaters on television. But what's interesting about what we see here is not just the prank that is alleged to have happened, but it quickly turns into a criminal offense based off of the comments that they made, threatening toward the family, and ultimately destroying property and trying to make entry into the residence before they ran off. And so this is a very serious matter, not just for this family, but our community, especially as we approach this Halloween holiday season. We want people that are on our streets to feel safe.
Whistleblowers have told Tucker Carlson, and I've confirmed this from other sources, that during the short war with Iran earlier this year, Israeli officers were literally storming around the Pentagon, demanding action and demanding war. And we saw that in the media. We saw that in Congress, even though Trump backed limited strikes. This is what Israel does. I don't have a hard on for Israel. I don't hate Israel. But Israel thinks it has this relationship with America where it's the boss, and it's out of control. And now because Tucker, who's a loyal American, has been exposing this, he's being demonized everywhere with the magic word anti-Semitism. Let me give you a little news flash. The FBI just broke ties with the ADL today. That crap has been way overplayed. People are done. We're not anti-Jew or anti-Israel, and a lot of people are. I'm certainly not. But we're certainly pissed off that we can't influence our own government, but this foreign power can. So here's what's happening. The power vacuum where the American people were asleep and all these foreign interests, including Israel, control things, is over. It's over. And we're not going to fight your wars anymore. We're not going to finance what you're doing. We don't support the Islamics and the Hamas Israel created, and you want to export the refugees here. No. We're not going to be controlled by Muslims or Israel. We're done. And Tucker Carlson's a hero, and he's telling the truth. And that's why he's under attack. That's why I support him. God bless you all. Follow me here right here on X, at Real Alex Jones, and just keep getting the truth out, because at the end of the day, that's what really matters.
He talked about the woke right, and he said, I call it the woke Reich. That's a brilliant observation. The woke Reich, because these people, you know, they're not any different from the woke left. I mean, they're insane. They're Louis. We have to fight back. How do we fight back? Our influencers. And the most important purchase that is going on right now is TikTok, #1. And the other one, X. You know, so we have to talk to Elon. He's not an enemy. We have to fight the fight.
Whatever else you happen to be doing this minute, if you're making dinner, if you're drying the dishes, if you're checking your email, stop. Stop and take a good, long look at the face that I'm about to show you. Pause your TV and make sure you get a picture. Take a picture of your TV, get a screen grab, and I need you to share it far and wide. This is Jesse Mack Butler, 18 years old. He's from Stillwater, Oklahoma. That's a college town. It is also home to, you know, Oklahoma State University, right? And it's about an hour north of Oklahoma City. And back in March, when Jesse Mack Butler was 17, he was charged as an adult with a string of sadistic sex crimes against 2 girls. They were fellow students at Stillwater High School. One of the girls was choked unconscious and almost died, according to her doctor. Jesse Butler was charged with 10 felony counts in all, and it is very important you see the list. I think you'll get a picture of what happened when you see this list of charges. 2 attempted rapes, 3 charges of rape by instrumentation, and you'll have to use your imagination about what that means, but yeah, it is literal. 1 count of sexual battery, 1 count of forcible oral sodomy, 2 counts of domestic assault and battery by strangulation, and 1 count of domestic assault and battery. And while there were even more and way bigger charges that the state likely could have thrown at this kid, like attempted murder, the 2 alleged victims and their families had every reason to believe that the wheels of justice were hard at work on this case, both for them and for the accused, Jesse Mack Butler. And before I tell you what ended up happening, let me tell you why he faced those specific charges, what he actually did to those 2 girls. You should know that these details are extremely graphic. They are despicable, but they are critical to this story, especially when you find out how the judge came down in this case. So fair warning, trigger warning, what I'm about to list out for you is very uncomfortable to say and to hear. A police affidavit says a girl who's identified only as LS because she's a minor dated Jesse Butler for about 3 months, starting in January of last year. She was 16 at the time. And during that time, the victim said Butler repeatedly raped and attempted to rape her and would strangle her if she refused. The teenage girl needed surgery to repair the damage done to her neck by the strangulation. And her doctor told her that she would have died had that strangulation lasted another 30 seconds. The girl said that she gave in to Jesse Mack Butler because he threatened to kill her and he threatened to kill her family if she didn't give in. A separate affidavit says in March of last year, Butler took up with another 16-year-old girl identified only as KS. And that relationship lasted 6 months, but this teenager also said that Butler was aggressive and violent with her and says she went along with all the unwanted sex to avoid being hurt further. This victim also said that one time when she did refuse, Butler strangled her too. But get this, he recorded himself strangling her until she passed out. And lest you think this might be just a he said, she said, police later found that video on Jesse Mack Butler's phone. So that's what we call evidence. Jesse Butler pleaded not guilty to everything, as was his right off the bat. But in the coming months, for reasons that I will not pretend tonight to understand, the DA's office struck a deal with Butler's lawyers to change his status from adult to youthful offender.
The DA's office struck a deal with Butler's lawyers to change his status from adult to youthful offender.
Well, we have new disturbing details in a story of a Maryland man charged with kidnapping 2 teenage girls and taking them to a Northern Virginia hotel. The victims are only 13 and 17 years old, according to court documents.
A new search warrant affidavit revealed that before the girls escaped, they rushed to the hotel's front desk. They asked the clerk to call 911, but the clerk did not make the call. Northern Virginia Bureau reporter Drew Wilder picks up the story from here, and we want to warn you, the details are disturbing.
New information now on a story that will make any parent sick to their stomach. Last Wednesday, 2 young girls escaped their accused kidnapper who allegedly took them from Baltimore to this Stafford County hotel to, quote, pimp them out. All of this is according to newly released search warrants. Now, the girls managed to get away, but as they were escaping, the girls told detectives that they went to the front desk of the hotel and they asked the concierge to call 911. But the girls told detectives that the concierge did not call 911 for them right away. So they had to run out of the hotel, and they were eventually able to flag down a man who would help them. When Stafford County Sheriff's deputies got to the Quality Inn Hotel on Green Spring Drive, another guest of the hotel said the girls had been, quote, pimped out all night. 54-year-old Tyrone McDaniel was arrested on multiple felony charges. McDaniel is accused of picking the 2 girls up in Baltimore by offering them a ride. Detectives say he took the girls against their will to this hotel about 70 miles away. And when the girls asked to go home, McDaniel allegedly said, nah, that's not going to happen. According to the criminal complaint, McDaniel told the victims they would work with other little kids and make a lot of money. Court documents show money was recovered as evidence from inside the 2 hotel rooms that McDaniel was allegedly using. The Stafford County Sheriff's Office says once the girls were rescued, they were turned over to Child Protective Services to be reunited with their families. Reporting in Stafford County, Drew Wilder, News 4.
News 4 reached out to Choice Hotels, the company that owns Quality Inn, to ask their company policy related to helping guests in distress. We also asked if the concierge who allegedly did not call 911 is still employed. They did not answer that question, but they did send us a statement that said, we are deeply troubled by this incident at an independently owned and operated hotel and are actively engaged with the hotel owner, who is cooperating with authorities in their investigation. Choice Hotels International condemns human trafficking in all forms, and we are committed to helping our franchised hotels create a safer environment for their staff and guests.
Anyone who opposes me in the United States, who opposes more aid to Israel or opposes getting sucked into war with Iran, which does not serve American interests, that person is not simply mistaken or wrong. I'm not going to bother to explain why that person is wrong. That person is a part of the woke Reich. And the only way to fix it is by preventing Americans in the last country on earth with guaranteed freedom of speech, prevent Americans from hearing the other side. And so we push Congress to force a TikTok sale, which is true, by the way. And when that happened, and various members of Congress were like, no, really, it's about China, there were people online who said, no, I think it's really about Israel. Here he is just admitting, no, we pushed the U.S. Congress to censor in the United States, to commit censorship in the United States because we think it's bad for us. And we need to talk to Elon. You know, that's the point at which you just say no. Anyone who says anything about it is attacked. Oh, you're an anti-Semite. Well, it has nothing to do with anti-Semitism. That's insulting. Why would we ever put up with that? Why would we put up with the attack on the USS Liberty that everyone's so afraid to talk about, clearly targeted on purpose by a country we're supporting, Israel, and it's somehow shameful to say that? Why? Why is it shameful to say that? Who knows why it's shameful to say that, but it shouldn't be. And until we have some self-respect, not anger or hate, but just dignity, it will continue. In June, for example, during the 12-day war, such as it was with Iran, the U.S. and Israel versus Iran, bombing on all sides, during that short conflict, IDF officers in the Pentagon, foreign military officers in the Pentagon, and by the way, they're not the only foreign military officers in the Pentagon, to be clear. There are NATO officers, they're from other countries, British, but there are a bunch of Israeli Defense Force officers in the Pentagon that week. And during that week, ask anyone who works at the Pentagon, they enraged American Pentagon staff by just barging into meetings, giving orders, making demands, and nobody did anything about it. How can a foreign military officer barge into military headquarters, even if invited, but barge into a meeting and start demanding, we want this, we want that, you need to get on this? Huh? The more you allow that kind of deeply unhealthy behavior, the more you're going to get. And that's exactly what has happened. Because of the weakness of our leaders, we have incited predators in a foreign country to take advantage of us. Oh, that's such an anti-Israel thing to say. It's not anti-Israel at all. It's a demand that the people whose job it is, whose sacred duty it is to defend and represent us, our leaders, both at the Pentagon and all throughout the U.S. government, that they do that they stand up and defend us against all potential threats, against all foreign countries to the extent they need to, and that they do not prostrate themselves before a foreign nation.
You know, Jason, I've been watching the other side of the political aisle to see how they were going to respond to this. Will they lower the temperature, unify, change their ways? Unfortunately, yesterday I was watching Representative Crockett, and this is what she had to say.
One of the things I do want to point out that's not been laid out that honestly hurts my heart is when I saw the no votes, there were only 2 Caucasians. For the most part, the only people that voted no were people of color, because the rhetoric that Charlie Kirk continuously put out there was rhetoric that specifically targeted people of color. And so it is unfortunate that even our colleagues could not see how harmful his rhetoric was, specifically to us.
On the day of the memorial.
She's never heard Charlie Kirk. You listen to the message of Charlie Kirk said, hey, if you disagree, let's talk it out. It's so rare. You know, when I was first elected to Congress, Lawrence, I really did think we all believed in the same thing. We just had different ways of getting there. When I left Congress, I was convinced, no, that's not true. This is a fight of good versus evil. It truly is. And what was exhibited by some, not all, but some of the Democrats in the way they've handled this, the way they've handled violence and death and an assassination. If we can't come together on an assassination of a private citizen, somebody who wasn't in elected office, when are we going to come together? I think it is truly a fight of good versus evil. I really do.
Out of your screen there, former youth pastor Daniel Mayfield has learned his fate after he was sentenced on federal sex crime charges.
Our Peyton Furtado has been following that story. Peyton, how much time did Mayfield receive?
Well, Sydney and Mark, Mayfield got the maximum sentence, at least for time in prison. He got 240 months. That's 20 years behind bars, minus the time he's already served since May of 2023. So that's about 2.5 years at this point. When he's released, he's going to have to register for the sex offender registry. He's also going to be supervised for the rest of his life. I chatted with several victims and their family members today. They tell me they believe justice was served. 5,433. That's how many pornographic images a federal judge said Daniel Kellen Mayfield had taken on his phone of women and children in the upstate. Mayfield was a youth pastor in Greenville County and a wedding photographer, and according to investigators, would film women and children, some younger than 12 years old, using the restroom, changing, and showering.
This has had tremendous impact on my grandchildren who were victimized by this predator, and so it's it's the kind of thing that steals the innocence from a child and that wrecks their trust.
Tuesday, victims and their family members watched as Mayfield was sentenced in federal court. Carly Hall was Mayfield's former sister-in-law and was the first person to call 911 on Mayfield when she and a family member caught him taking videos of her in the shower, May 2023.
I thought I was just going to get my video off and delete it wherever it was on the phone, cloud, Google Drive, anything. So I searched pretty much throughout the whole phone, but it didn't take long to see the next thing.
She says she saw hundreds of images of dozens of women, children, even her 2-month-old baby.
And he did have cameras in several houses that I was in. He would plant cameras there, but then also just his regular cell phone. He would have it out anytime that I was in his presence. It was always on film.
While Mayfield was sentenced in federal court, he still faces 156 voyeurism and sexual exploitation of a minor charges in general sessions courts out of Greenville, Greenwood, and Spartanburg counties. The Attorney General will prosecute Mayfield in state court.
I'm a Christian. I forgive. I also understand that even with forgiveness, there are often consequences for our sin.
I do stand very strong in my faith, and I honestly don't wish harm on anyone. However, I do believe in the justice system.
We begin with breaking news. A police pursuit on the 110 freeway ends in tragedy. We're hearing the freeway could be shut down for 6 hours after the suspect leaps from that moving van into oncoming lanes.
Fox 11's Matthew Seedorf is live in Highland Park with the latest there. Matthew.
Well, as you said, a man that was driving a stolen vehicle has died after trying to jump out of a car to get away from police. We're right over the 110 freeway. Joe will show you kind of what we're seeing right now. As the 110 is closed in both directions, you can see massive numbers of law enforcement out here, as well as the canopy up over the man's body. This happened just a couple of hours ago, and I'll get to the video. It was pretty intense, very graphic. You can see this, the driver in that stolen white van jump out of the driver's door into oncoming traffic on the southbound side of the 110 freeway. Will freeze it before the moment of impact, but he's hit by at least 2 cars on the southbound side of the 110 going at freeway speeds. And then if you take a look at this other video, this is just moments after that deadly collision. The driver of that stolen van dead on the freeway, covered with that tarp. Law enforcement tried life-saving efforts with CPR on the freeway, but wasn't successful. But it looks like this freeway will be closed for hours, the 110 in both directions. If you take a look live from Skyfox, you can see the traffic up and down the freeway. At the general scene, it is shut down, quiet. All you see is police cars, but in both directions beyond the actual scene itself, you can see nothing but red lights, as well as the side streets also impacted by this crash. Back out here live, I can tell you, just getting here from other parts of LA was tough because of that traffic. We still look at the scene. Police, again, going to be here for hours. The freeway expected to be closed until at least 4 a.m. for this investigation.
Just a charge that they would use for persecution.
Bill, it sounds like this latest crackdown has wrapped up dozens of pastors.
Yeah, absolutely. The crackdown that we've seen last week was the most extensive singular crackdown on any church in China in the last 40 years. So what we're seeing is a serious escalation across several cities. It's really nationwide, and this seems like only the beginning.
Where do we go from here? Will there be a fair legal process for your father in fighting these charges?
I definitely, as a Christian, I also believe in miracles, and I think that we are calling for a full, unconditional and immediate release of my family, as well as those 21 others that are detained. Unfortunately, just looking at other cases in China, like other persecuted Christians, like it really would be a miracle if they were able to be released in such a quick and unconditional way. So we are bracing for a longer potential legal battle and such, but yeah, that's what it'll seem like it will happen.
So Secretary Rubio has weighed in on this. Here's part of what he said. He said, we call on the CCP to immediately release the detained church leaders and to allow all people of faith, including members of house churches, to engage in religious activities without fear of retribution. Responding to that, China's foreign ministers told NPR, said, we firmly oppose the U.S. side's interference in China's internal affairs under the pretext of so-called religious issues. So, Bill, is it politics that's driving this? Is it part of the U.S.-China tension? Where do you go?
My sense is that, when the Chinese Communist Party senses that they're about to have a difficult period, whether that's a trade war in 2018 or a trade war now, they tend to want to kind of batten down the hatches on their society. They want to tighten the screws so that they have absolute control in case they're afraid that there's public unrest.
Is there a U.S. role, should there be, with respect to this? I mean, China says this is not your issue, it's domestic. Is there a role that the U.S. can play?
Yeah. my father's daughter and my two brothers are also American citizens. When we first heard about this, our immediate response was just to ask our government to protect us and to call out for the situation with my father. We know that we are part of a global Christian community, and so we just call out for prayer and call out for just not to forget us and not to forget the Christians in China.
Suggested off the top of this show, grab a screen grab of that. That's the face. I mean, he's young, he's gonna change, but that's him. Spread that far and wide. That's all you got, folks. That is all you have to protect your girls and protect yourself. And now I'm going to stop because I am livid, and I'm going to let Justin Shepard have a word here. He's a digital journalist whose online handle is Just in the Nick of Crime. He has been on this case from the beginning. And let me tell you, Justin, you have done some unbelievable digging, not just on the case itself, but the justice system and the players, not only the judge, but the judge's father and those involved. It sounds to me, and this is just a very sweeping comment, Justin, but it sounds to me like this is like the low country Murdochs and how they used to run justice in their neck of the woods. Am I off here?
No, you're not. In fact, it's funny you said Murdoch, because I was talking about somebody else about this today earlier, and I said this is just like the Murdoch situation with how deep this goes. And yeah, normally when I get a story that comes across my desk and I'm like, okay, I'm going to talk about this one. And I'm like you, when I first saw this one, I was absolutely livid. I still am. And the next thing I knew, I had so many people reaching out to me about the way Stillwater, Oklahoma's judicial system handles things, the type of punishment that sex offenders get or lack thereof. And it goes much deeper than I would have even begun to have imagined.
So let me ask you this. Why no attempted murder charge? The doctor who treated the first victim, who has the surgery scar from the welt and the intense swelling that continued after the strangulation, he said that if she was strangled 30 more seconds, she was going to die. Why was there not an attempted murder charge in this case?
That's a great question, and your guess is as good as mine. I mean, maybe perhaps at the beginning they felt they didn't need it with the other litany of charges that they had, that they ended up, pleading down to, 150 hours of community service.
New fallout tonight from a racist and violent group chat involving leaders of some young Republican groups, as reported by Politico. The outlet obtaining more than 7 months' worth of Telegram messages in which they say members muse about using gas chambers against political opponents. "I'm ready to watch people burn now," one person responds. Another describing rape as epic. The chat includes anti-Semitic comments and racial slurs against Black, Latino, Asian people, and other epithets used more than 250 times, according to Politico. The outlet says one person, after being told backers would support the most right-wing candidate for a leadership role, responded, "Great, I love Hitler." At another point, someone writes, "If we ever had a leak of this chat, we would be cooked." NBC News has not independently obtained or verified the messages, which reportedly involved political advisors and strategists in New York, Arizona, Kansas, and Vermont, including a state senator there.
It's revolting, it's disgusting, it's obnoxious. It's the kind of garbage the worst kinds of people say when they think no one is watching.
Now, at least 3 people involved in the chat are reportedly out of a job. The Kansas Young Republicans deactivated, and many condemning the hateful rhetoric.
Disgusting. If they have government jobs, they should be fired. It's reprehensible.
Vice President J.D. Vance today downplaying the messages.
I really don't want us to grow up in a country where a kid telling a stupid joke, telling a very offensive stupid joke, is cause to ruin their lives. We're not canceling kids because they do something stupid in a group chat.
In an earlier post, Vance says he refuses to, in his words, join the pearl clutching, saying what's far worse are the violent text messages that have upended Virginia politics. The Democratic candidate for Attorney General there in 2022 suggesting one of the state's top Republicans should get, quote, 2 bullets to the head. Jay Jones, days ago, apologizing.
I am deeply, deeply sorry. I should have never done it. It's very embarrassing to me, and certainly I regret it.
As for the Young Republicans chat, the national board says anyone involved should resign, and the governor of Vermont is now calling on a state senator there to do just that. That lawmaker has publicly apologized, but stopped short of stepping down.
If you seriously believe the 13% of the population and 50% of the crime, you need to get fact-checked, and I'm about to do it to you. In 2016, white people committed 70% of the convicted crime, and black people only committed 27%. Then in 2017, white people committed 68% of the reported crime, and black people only committed 26% of it. And in 2024, white people committed 53% of the reported crime, while black people only committed 25%. So this narrative on 13% of the population, 50% of the crime is wrong. You know who actually commits 50% of the crime? White people. But guess what stat black people are 13% of the population and 50% in? Exonerations. You know, when they're wrongly convicted, all you're doing by spreading this fake fact is allowing more people to profile and be racist towards black people. You know what's the highest percentage of people who are victims of white people? Black people. And if you look at all the shootings, guess who are the shooters? White dudes. So let's all think long and hard on who actually commits 50% of the crime.
So let's all think long and hard on who actually commits 50% of the crime.